All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our January What's New on Everlaw training. My name is Alyssa, and I'm with Everlaw's user education team. As folks are kind of filtering in, I'd love to do a quick rundown of the presentation platform that we're going to be using today, which is Goldcast. So throughout today's training, you're going to have the opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A tab that's just to the right of your screen. You'll also see a Docs tab that has some links that you can use throughout the session, and our comprehensive release guide is linked there as well. And finally, you're going to see some polls throughout today's training. These are just opportunities to check in and share your learning with both myself and the team. And speaking of the team, I am joined today by my colleague, Aubrey. So Aubrey's actually here in the background today to help facilitate. She's going to be answering your questions coming in through that Q&A tab as we go along. So please feel free to drop them in there as we go. All right, so now that we're kind of settled in, let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. So here is a very high kind of level roadmap for today. We're going to start off with talking about new features that are available in the platform, and then we're going to move into some of our improved features, so updates to existing tools that you may already be using. And then we're going to wrap up with a quick look at some new training resources so you know where to go next if you'd like to learn more. So let me go ahead and readjust my screen before we dive into the content. Just want to make sure that we're maximizing our screen space here. All right, so we're kicking things off with Everlaw Archive. So Everlaw Archive is a feature that allows you to place inactive databases into cold storage. So this is kind of designed for matters that you need to retain for the long term. So think maybe like 5 to 10 years, or a pause for more than 6 months. Even though you can't actively work in the database while it's archived, Everlaw is going to preserve all of your documents, your work product, and configurations exactly as they are so that you can restore the database later if you need to. And one quick note, this is an add-on feature, so you will need to have it enabled for your organization to use it. And to enable this feature or to learn more about it, you can contact your Everlaw customer success representative. So I would love to show you where this lives. I'm going to take us on over to the platform. So here we are just in one of my Everlaw projects, but I'm going to start this demo off from the organization homepage here. So I'll go ahead and click into our Diamond O. And I will note that you can also archive from the database settings page, but we're going to stay at this org level today. I'm going to take us into this Projects and Users tab here. And then I'll go ahead and scroll until I find the database that I want to archive. So for today, I'm looking at this one here, our Everlaw training database. Once I found the database, I'll go ahead and click into this 3-dot menu and then select Archive Database. What's going to happen is you're going to see this dialog pop up here that's going to explain that the database is going to become non-reviewable. And from here, you can either choose to archive immediately, or you can choose to schedule the archive for the end of the current billing cycle. So once the archive is complete, you basically would have a little archived flag that's going to appear next to the database name in this list right behind this box here. And then if you ever need to restore access, I'm not actually going to archive this right now since I am using this one for the training today. So I'll click out of this, but you could just click the archive button if you wanted to proceed. But in the future, if you wanted to come back and kind of restore this, you would do so through the same option here, but instead of archive, you'd be able to kind of reactivate the database from here. Something that I will call out is that reactivation can take a few hours. So unlike maybe if you've suspended databases in the past, suspension is kind of an instant thing, but when you archive and reactivate, it can take a little bit of time for it to come back online. And once the reactivation finishes, the database will return to its fully active and reviewable state. So if you'd like to learn more about Everlaw Archive, I am going to put a quick link into the chat. That's just going to take you over to one of our knowledge base articles if you'd like to learn more about this feature. Okay, so next up, we have a structural change to how legal holds are managed. So previously, legal holds were largely database specific, but with this release, they're now centralized at the organization level and are organized by matters. So that means that you no longer configure holds inside of individual databases. Instead, you'll do so through the organization homepage to manage holds across all matters in one place. And because holds are now tied to matters, you can even issue hold notices and set up preservations before a database exists for that matter. So let's go ahead and switch over to the platform, and I'd love to walk you through what this looks like. So I'm just going to take us back on over to our org admin page here. And from the left-hand side, we have this legal holds tab. So I'm going to go ahead and click us into here. And now we are going to see that we have a list of matters displayed here. And if I click into a matter, so let's say this matter 101 at the top here, let's go ahead and click view. From here, this is going to allow me to be able to manage any kind of hold notices or any connected data preservations. I can view custodians and any kind of note information. For folks who are managing active holds, so here's an example of one that's been issued, we've added an important administrative capability here. So you can now manually update a custodian's acknowledgement status. So we can see here that this one's been sent out, but it has not been acknowledged. So this can be helpful, say, if maybe someone has confirmed verbally, or maybe they signed like a form but didn't click the email link. So what you can do is you can click into this notice. And we'll see here, this has not been acknowledged, but maybe let's imagine that for today, this person had confirmed verbally. We can click into this little pencil icon now, and this is going to give us the option where we can kind of put in here a reason for manual acknowledgement. So let's say that maybe they acknowledged verbally. We can input that in kind of on their behalf here. You can also edit or input questionnaire responses on their behalf. So if we click into this questionnaire responses section here, this is going to allow us to see the question that was sent out. So we can actually answer this question on their behalf, and we can change the acknowledgement status on their behalf as well. So again, this is really helpful to kind of make sure your records stay complete, even if the responses were collected offline. Cool, now we can see that it's acknowledged. Alongside these updates, we also have introduced a legal hold viewer role. So this is an organization level read-only permissions that would give users the visibility into hold details across matters. So they'd be able to have this like legal holds tab visible here, but they wouldn't be able to actually like edit or delete anything. They would just be able to view the information. So that can be really helpful or maybe ideal for stakeholders who need oversight, but not necessarily configuration control. All right. So another new feature is an enhancement that we've made to native uploads. So you can now deduplicate native uploads against processed data that's already in the database. So this is especially helpful, let's say if you're migrating data from another system, or if you're re-uploading files and want to avoid hosting the exact same native files twice. So let me go ahead and show you exactly where this lives on platform, and I'll give you some more information as we go. So I'm actually going to take us into one of our projects. Let me go ahead and take us into our What's New at Everlaw project. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and start a native upload. So I'll take us into this data transfer and into uploads. And I'll select native from here and kick off an upload. And I'll go ahead and choose a zip file. Go ahead and upload that here. Perfect. So now what we're going to see what's new is underneath this step here, we can choose to deduplicate either globally or by custodian. And once you've made one of those selections, we have the option to select this checkbox here. So this is the new piece. And this is going to say deduplicate these documents against process documents in the database. Just a couple of important details with this option here. Deduplication against process data requires that the process documents include native files. So Everlaw actually compares the hash value of the native file itself, not any hash value that might appear in the load file. So it's looking for a really strict technical match here. And unlike native to native deduplication, this also does not respect family relationships. And that means that an attachment can be deduplicated even if its parent email from the current upload is kept. So just a couple of things to be aware of. If you do select this option, you can always click into this option here to learn a little bit more about types of duplicates and deduplication options. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into some improved features, and that's going to start off with project exports. So we have made a couple of updates to make it easier to capture more of the complete snapshot of your case in a single export. So first is that you can now include Storybuilder work product directly in a project export. And second, you can also include user activity. So this is a log of user actions such as searches, document reviews, logins, things like that. So I'll show you where you can find this on platform. So I'm going to, again, take us back over to our org admin page and take us into projects and users. Again, this is something that technically can also be done from database settings if you are not an org admin. But again, we're just keeping everything on one page for today. So I'm going to scroll down to our project here in this list. And let's go ahead and click into that three-dot option. And from here, this is where we're going to find the option to export out a project. In this menu here, we are now going to see that we have the option to include Storybuilder work product and user activity. When you export out this Storybuilder work product option, that is going to bundle together native deposition transcripts and people profiles and transcript annotations and highlights right alongside your documents. But just be aware that depositions, exhibits, drafts, and summaries and timelines are not included and must be exported from Storybuilder still. But right below that, we also have the checkbox for user activity. When this is selected, the export zip is going to include a user activity folder with CSV logs of project level actions for each user. This is really great if you need a compliance or audit trail even after closing a project. And one other export options, this is specifically for organizations that are using sub-organizations, such as this example that we have here. So this is another improvement, which is parent level user reporting. So from here, admins now have the option where they can export out a single CSV of users across the parent organization and all sub-organizations. So this is going to significantly speed up access reviews and compliance reporting if you need to have this a record of this outside of Everlaw. Okay, and we have one more update that is a little bit more related to our admins still, but project and custom redaction stamps are now editable. So previously, if you had a typo or needed to change an abbreviation, you had to create a whole new stamp. But now you can actually edit an existing stamp. So I'll briefly show you where this is. I'm going to take us back on over to our project. And as I mentioned, this is an admin capability. So I'm going to take us into our project settings, which project administrators have access to. And from here, we have this general tab over on the left-hand side, and this is where our production tools lives. So I'll pop us into here. We have a section here for redaction stamps. We can see the stamps that we have for this project. And you'll notice that we have this little pencil icon now where we can edit this. So for example, if this was maybe the wrong information, you could type that in here and update it. What's really great about this is that once you update a stamp's text, it's going to change automatically anywhere that the stamp appears on an unproduced document. So that is going to make it much, much easier to clean up language or maybe bring stamps into alignment with updated protocols without having to redo your review work. All right. We also have a couple of updates for Storybuilder depositions. So first, you can now download the original native sync files and videos directly from a deposition. So that's going to help ensure that your source data is always accessible right here in Platform so that you don't have to waste any time maybe hunting through your local file system to find the originals later on. And second, you can now export a transcript that contains only your highlights without generating the full annotations report. So this is a really great option for sharing more of like a clean, readable version of the transcript. But let's take a quick look at where you can do this from. I'm going to take us back on over to our project, and I'm going to pop us right into Storybuilder. So from here, I'll go ahead and take us into our deposition. And I'll click into this one. So we're in here in the transcript. We can view the transcript and also our video from here. And those download options are going to live right here. So you have the options to download your native transcript and sync file, your native deposition video. And then here you can also download your transcript. So previously, you could only export either the transcript with highlights and an annotations report or just the annotations report. So you have those additional export format options here now. And one final Storybuilder update is that if you are on either the fact timeline page or if you're on the evidence page, and you filter your documents, say maybe by a specific person or a specific label, I'll go ahead and filter by just documents that are inside my Gates Depot, the one that we were just taking a look at. These filters now carry over to the results table. So previously, it would just open all documents in the story when you would click into this. And now it's going to respect your filtering or your specific view here. So if I click into this review button, I have 9 story items here. We're going to see that that carries over to the results table, that I have 9 documents viewable from here now. So finally, we have a few updates to search and filtering. Before we move into search in more detail, there's a very small but helpful tweak to the homepage. Previously, if you applied a filter from a card, so for example, if you opened up a binder and applied a filter, that system would actually, or the system would apply the filter to like the binder card itself. But now we have a new behavior where it actually will apply or create a new search for you that's filtered rather than applying a filter to the binder itself. So let's go ahead and go back to our project. I'll go ahead and take us back to our homepage so I can show you this behavior. Let's say that I'm in this binder, my redaction docs binder. And let's say that I've applied a filter, maybe for the number of pages. Maybe I want to see some of those longer documents. I'll add a filter here. You can see my filter for the number of pages applied up here at the top. And once we go back to our homepage, this is when we're going to see the new behavior. So I'll click the house icon here. This is the binder that I was just in. We'll see that it stays as is with our 28 documents, but it's created a new search card for me based off of the filter that I had just applied here. So that makes it a little bit easier to come back into binders, especially if you weren't expecting a filter to be applied. The binder will stay as is, and it'll create a new search for you. Okay, so let's look at those updates for search and filtering. So first thing to call out here is that we have elevated the primary date field in two key areas. So first from the search page and also from Data Visualizer. If you are not familiar with primary date, this is an Everlaw smart term that automatically captures the most relevant date for a document based on its specific file type. So this search term makes it really helpful and useful for searching across mixed data sets. So things maybe like emails and loose files at the same time. And it gives you a much cleaner visualization of dates across all of your documents. Second is an update to suggested codes or coding suggestions. We've added a little bit more flexibility here so that you can filter for multiple criteria at the same time. For example, looking for documents that have a suggested code of yes and soft yes at the same time. And then third is a results table filtering update. We've made it possible to filter coding category columns directly in the results table. So let's move off this slide so I can show you what it looks like from the search page. I'll go ahead and take us back on over to our project. And let's go ahead and pop into the search page to take a look at these updates. Okay, so as I mentioned, one of the first things that you're going to notice is that the primary date is now surfaced right here at the top as kind of a more suggested metadata field. This change is small, but it saves you from having to dig through the hidden metadata fields here. And then next, if you look at the suggested code search term, go ahead and select that. And I'll go ahead and select a coding category. But before you could only pick one of these values here, but now I can multi-select. So for example, if I want to check both soft yes and yes at the same time, this will help me cast a bit of a wider net to capture everything that might be relevant with just one single search term here. So let's go ahead and run this search. I'll take us over to the results table. And here in the results table, we've added that same kind of interactivity to your columns. So we have a coding suggestions column that's already been added here. If I click into this funnel icon, you'll be able to select multiple suggestions from here. And then if you have a coding category column, for example, I have an issues coding category with multiple different codes within that, you can add this to your results table. If you are interested in learning how to add or remove columns, you can do so in this view button here. But once you've added your coding category column, you can now choose to filter based off of the specific codes directly from the header here. And then finally, if I open up Data Visualizer, we're going to now see that the primary date is now kind of the default pinned visualization here as well. All right, and finally, we also have a small but important improvement to document Q&A in the review window. Document Q&A can now analyze up to about 1.2 megabytes of text at once, which is roughly 300 to 600 pages, depending on how dense the content is. And that is up from about 200 to 300 pages previously. So if your document is longer than that, the tool is still going to kind of focus on the first roughly 300 to 600 pages, but the context page is going to show you how many pages were actually included in the answer. That way you always know exactly what portion of the document the AI is drawing from. I also just want to mention that this release includes a handful of smaller visual updates, so things like clear export notifications and some polished Storybuilder transcript exports. I'm not going to go into details of every single one of those small updates today, but if you're interested in learning more about those, I definitely recommend taking a look at the comprehensive release guide that's linked in the Docs tab to the right of your screen for the full list. So that concludes kind of the feature set for Release 125, but I do want to take a moment to highlight a couple of new training resources and upcoming events that you should have on your radar. So first is for those getting up to speed with our AI tools. We do have a new deep dive quick start video that's available in the training center. So this is a really great resource to get quickly up to speed on how to ask questions across your documents and how to verify the AI citations. If you'd like to take a look at this video, I am going to drop the link in the chat. But this is also available at everlaw.com/training. Next, I also want to highlight that we've refreshed our Storybuilder Quick Start video. We've updated this to cover the new fact timeline functionality. So if you want to see how to build out your case narrative, definitely give this video a watch. I'm also going to drop the link for this one into the chat. And then finally, I also want to invite you to join us for our upcoming two-part webinar series, which is dedicated entirely to productions. If you have ever felt a little bit intimidated by the production process, or if you are a new user looking to build your confidence, this series is designed for you. So it's going to cover the essential building blocks of running productions on Everlaw. This will be an interactive session, meaning that you won't just be watching, you'll get the opportunity to actually practice your skills directly in an Everlaw project. And this series is split into two parts. So part one is going to focus on setting up your productions, creating a protocol, and running your production. And then part two is going to dive into the critical steps of quality checks and making modifications to existing productions. You can sign up for both of these sessions with a single click using the link in the Docs tab to the right of your screen. So this is a really great way to perfect your skills before your next deadline. I'm also going to go ahead and drop the registration link into the chat just to make it a little easier to find it. But thank you so much for your time and attendance today. We hope this was helpful, and we hope to see you in another training session soon. But thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.